Welcome to another episode of Fred Speaks, where the hope is to inspire and motivate through spiritual content, topics, and conversation. I pray this podcast finds you in the best of health and spirits. Welcome, friends. This is Fred, the host of Fred Speaks. And I would like to start off with a poem that I had written. And it goes like this. Life without you wouldn't be, because you're the very air I breathe. Although I can't hold you or touch you or see you face to face, I know that a few more rising and setting of the sun will be together as one. Sometimes it feels like you left me in this world all alone, but you promised you would come again if I could hold out and endure to the end. Trouble in my way, I have to cry sometimes, but I'm comforted in the fact that you're coming back. What a day it will be when you eliminate everything that causes us to cry and establish a new heaven and a new earth wherein dwells righteousness. And that leads us into our topic for this episode, which is my identity. And everybody is always trying to find out what is it that they identify with. Who do they identify with? Why am I here? What's my purpose? And I believe that everybody wants to know who they belong to. Why they do the things they do. Why am I this way? As human beings, if we know our parents, we look at them to see, do I look like them? Are my ways like them? We do this because we want to know our true identity. Imagine if you didn't know your parents. There would always be a longing or a desire to meet them or talk to them to better understand where you come from. If you can understand that naturally, then we should understand that spiritually, we all have an identity. But many don't seek to understand who they belong to. People will sign up for services like Ancestry.com to find their biological parents or siblings. Spiritually, we all have a family, but we have to know which family we belong to. Jesus said in John the 10th chapter, the 27th through the 28th verse, my sheep, my sons, and daughters, hear and know my voice, and I know them, and they follow me, and I will give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. And I'm reminded of the three Hebrew boys who knew their biological parents, but they also identified spiritually with their God. And I was thinking about that. They were raised to believe in the true God. They were raised to carry themselves in a certain way to honor and respect and obey God. And so their parents had taught them this, but there came a time that the king had made a decree that when the music started to play, everyone was to bow down to the golden statue. And if you know anything about God, God did not want his people, his sons, his daughters to worship any idols or any other god besides him. So the king had established this decree that he wanted everyone to bow to the golden statue that he had made. But these three young men refused to bow down or worship another god. And when the king got word of their refusal to bow, he had them brought to him. But the young men were not hesitant in answering the king in the matter. And the king had these young men, he allowed them to oversee certain things within the kingdom. And so he liked these young men, and he wanted to give them a chance to make it right, to go back and bow down, but they refused. And so it angered the king that they would not, obey the law that he had put in place. And these young men, they were very confident in the God that they believed in. And they expressed that if our God doesn't deliver us, we know he's able. Their identity was so strong that they were prepared to die for what they believed in. And you know the story found in Daniel, the 3rd chapter. The 3 Hebrew boys were bound and cast into this fiery furnace. But God will identify, he will come and deliver his children. And it was such a wonderful act by God that he identified with these young men, and so much so that he presented himself in the fiery furnace with them. And I was thinking about that. Sometimes we feel that we are in certain conditions or situations and that we have nobody that understands, that identifies with us or can relate to us but God. And that's what God did on behalf of these 3 young men. He present himself in the fiery furnace with them. And the king looked into that fiery furnace, and he could see that there was 4 men, 4 individuals. And he looked and he said, there's a 4th that looks like the Son of God. So God made it known that these are my sons by coming to their rescue. And everybody need to know who Jesus is, but everybody does not identify with him. Who do you identify with spiritually? Do you identify with the only true God, or the God of this world, which is the prince and the power of the air? Everybody need to know who their Father is. So there's no question regarding who you are and how you should carry yourself. Jesus said regarding his spiritual sons and daughters, ye are the light of the world, a city that sit on a hill that cannot be hid. Let your light so shine before men that they might see your good works and glorify the Father If you belong to Jesus, don't be afraid to be who you are. It will definitely not be popular, but there will be no question regarding your identity. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to our new episode all the way to the end. And for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I would like to encourage you to share this podcast and give a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever platform you use to listen to Fred Speaks. Thanks.